Welcome to Life, Biz, and Goals. I'm LaToniga Sass, and I just want to welcome everyone in today. My special guest is Bernadette Washington, and I am so excited to have her here. You guys are really going to enjoy this podcast today. Bernadette, welcome to Life, Biz, and Goals. How are you doing?
I am doing great, and thank you so much for inviting me. I am so excited about the podcast this morning.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. I am, once again, my name is Bernadette Washington. I have been in higher ed for at least about 20 years. I've done from advising to financial aid to, only thing I have not done has been the president of a college, okay? I've kind of worked in every other area. I've done seminars as an instructor. So it's been a wonderful journey. I'm actually still in that field, which I'm so excited about. Also, I have a ministry that's called Destiny Enhancers Ministries International. And under that umbrella, I normally do something that's called Let's Chat All Singles. I have a women's conference every year, or just whenever the Lord is leading me. And that's pretty much what I do overall.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, everyone, I brought Bernadette on today because we are talking about spring cleaning. And if you guys ever checking in for videos out, she is just a ball of fire. She is a joy. She's going to make you laugh. She's going to bring the serious part out in you. She's going to make you think about your thoughts, your emotions, any type of toxic behaviors that may be keeping you stuck. She is the lady. So I am so excited to have you here today.
I
Our subject for today is called spring cleaning. So now that we are in April, we're headed into May. I thought it was wonderful to kind of just focus these next 2 months on kind of decluttering our lives, getting our lives back in order. We came from the winter or fall wintering, and now we're coming forth into the spring. And so when I think about spring, I think about harvest, I think about flowers, I think about the beauty of nature. And it's the same way for our lives. So when you think about spring cleaning, what do you think about spiritually and emotionally?
Well, when I really think about that topic, right? Because there's so many things that can pop up in your head, but I'm really thinking about being intentional, right? That word intentional, being intentional about examining what's going on with you, what's going on with you emotionally, what's going on with you spiritually, what's going on with you in the natural sense. I think a lot of times we don't sit and really think about what's going on inside our house.
Okay.
I think we are busy, busy, busy. And I think that's part of not being intentional, right? Because a lot of times we don't always feel like cleaning our houses. We don't always want to do spring cleaning. Let's
Right.
just be honest. I mean, I just don't know anybody that's just happy just to do spring cleaning. Most of us dread it. We know that we have to do it because we need to get rid of stuff. Clutter is here. And I'm just talking about in the natural, right?
Yeah.
You know you need to do it, but when you think about it, you're like, oh man, I got to get to this. Well, it's the same way when it comes to our own personal house, right? Our own personal house, whether it's spiritual or whether you want to look at it in the natural, the natural sense of your inside. We need to be intentional about examining our thoughts, our habits, why we do what we do is extremely important.
I totally agree. And we really need to do it on a regular, not just a seasonal thing. I think that we need to do a heart check pretty much daily,
Correct.
and a mind, talking about renewing our minds. We need to do that daily in order to truly succeed in life, this wonderful life that we've been blessed with. So when we're going into talking about decluttering even more, uh, what comes to mind when you think about heart hoarding? Somebody can heart hoarding. So what do you think about that? Carrying stuff that you need to really let go. Probably some traumatic things people have dealt with in their childhood, and they're still hoarding those, and they're constantly, how a hoarder is. We've seen it on TV, how they're They constantly bringing stuff in, but they never release and let anything out. What do you think about that? What are your thoughts on
Well,
heart?
one of the things about heart hoarding or just hoarding in general, they really related to a mental health, right? So
Yes.
part of our mental health, we have to be able to deal with the issues of our heart. And
Mm-hmm.
let's just be honest. Some things are easier to get over,
Yeah.
and some things are much harder to get over. And I can just use my own personal life as just an example. My father was not the best father in the world. My father was a street man. Let me just put it that way. And I felt like it was that time. And I mean, I saw this growing up all the way until I was an adult. And I mean, up in age, right? I'm not talking about 20. I'm talking about 40s and 50s, dealing with issues of a father because of what he demonstrated in front of me. And I'm telling you, it took a very long time for me to release all of that baggage. Because, see, number one, sometimes you don't even know that you have it,
Right. That's true.
right? So
I agree.
sometimes God has to put the spotlight there to even let you know that you have it. And most of our baggage comes from our childhood,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we don't do a good job with, number one, admitting that. And number two, even recognizing that you do have baggage and asking God to put the spotlight on it. Because if you don't, it's going to show up. It doesn't matter. It can show up in a relationship. It'll show up on your job. It shows up in so many different ways that you just think that's normal,
Right, right.
right?
I totally agree. A lot of people do. They're like, this is me. This is how I've always been.
Correct,
You know, but then when you look at it, a lot of times in retrospect, well, that's how your mama was. And
correct,
that's how your grandmama was.
correct.
So when is it going to end? I mean, I totally agree with that.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's you think it's just a part of your personality, and it does become a part. It does become a part of your personality. It's like your personality. It's like this pain takes on its own personality. This trauma takes on its own personality, and
Mhm.
then what we do, we just pretend as if it's just us. And let me tell you, God, we serve such a good Father, and even if you do not believe, right? There are people around you that are saying to you, hey, I think you bossy. Hey, I think this about you. There are things that's being highlighted, right? That you're not recognizing and you're just taking it personal. Oh, I'm not that way. No, that's part of you dealing with your spring cleaning. Because when
Right.
you hear that 2 and 3 times, if you three different people have actually said to you that
Yeah.
you're bossy. You think that's just something happening. You think that's just, oh, all just, they don't know each other.
Right.
But three people have told you this. That's when you need to start looking internally.
Hmm.
And that's maturity, right? That's when you've decided, I'm going to do the spring cleaning that I need. I'm going to declutter my soul. I'm going to declutter my heart. You have to be able to listen to the cues that are around you.
So let me ask you this. So the person they hear, they stuff is popping up. Let's see. Because for me, a lot of times I feel like when if you're on social media and you're seeing videos and you have certain videos that pop up, um, it's not by coincidence. You know what I'm saying? Or you have certain things like you said, there's people, if you got three people that just said over the time the same thing,
Correct.
when you have something that pops up on social media that says the same thing to confirm, I feel like that's in a sense God trying to get your attention. Hey, this might be you. But where does that person start? Where do they need to start to try to declutter? Try to get rid of the heart hoarding and those things. Where because I think sometimes when people finally do get it, they don't know what to do with it or how to heal from it. So where do they start to try to heal from that or try to get free from that? Where do they start?
I would say the first thing, I know for me, prayer most definitely was a big thing for me. But even if you do not pray, even if you meditate. And in your meditation, something comes up
Mhm.
you feel that you need to deal with. For one, I believe in counseling. I believe therapy has helped me tremendously,
Mhm.
right? To be able to declutter some of the stuff that I've witnessed, that I've walked through as a child. And
Mhm.
I am saying to everyone that's listening, you have to deal with it.
Yeah.
You can't pray over it. You can pray over it,
Yeah.
but there are some things that you got to walk through. There are some things that you got to deal with the pain. There are some things, and I think that part of the reason why I think I just blocked it out was because it became normal.
Mm.
So it was normal for my father to be in the street. It was normal,
Yeah.
right? And so when you're constantly seeing something like that, and then now it becomes normal, and it becomes a part of your family, you don't even know you really just something. A part of you know, right? Like this is just wrong,
Right.
right? But because the person is just not stopping, a part of you to maintain the relationship, then you pretend that this is part of this is just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And when you adopt the attitude of okay, wrong now has become right, so I can maintain this relationship because
Mm-hmm.
that's what as children I'm a child. My relationships with my parents are important. So then, as a child, the way that you process things is that listen, I have to maintain my relationship with my parent.
Yeah.
But at what point do you have to say no? Now I'm going to have to choose me.
Mm.
And I got to a point to where I had to begin to choose me because my father behavior was killing me.
Now let's stop right there because you have a lot of young people. What age was that when you decided that? Because you have a lot of young people who go through that. Like they're kind of stuck. They know that there's some things that maybe that parent may not be doing right. I'm
Correct.
trying to use the right term.
Correct.
And but they're kind of stuck there and they have to deal with it. In order to maintain that relationship with that parent, you said that you realize, hey, I got to choose me. When did you choose you, and when do you suggest that they may need to have that aha moment? Let me choose me.
Well, first of all, when you're young, right? So let's say you're not an adult. You have to depend on family support to help a child deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, to be honest with you, that child may not get that support during those teenage years. It is until they get 18.
Okay.
It is then their responsibility to start seeking out counseling and
Okay.
those type of things to be able to help them start dealing with it. With me, I was much older. And it
Okay.
happened we were showing signs of it when we were much younger. So when he would do things, we wouldn't go to family reunions and things like that. We would boycott the family reunion, all that type of stuff, along with my mother. We
Okay.
would boycott. We would not go
Okay.
to say no. We're not going to pretend with you,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're not going to do that. So
Right.
we did that along and along, but yet we kept falling back into, it's just who he is,
Mm.
not fully understanding that his behavior has a cause and effect.
Yeah.
So emotionally, although we were allowing it, it was damaging in us. We were being damaged.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know that you're being damaged because you're just accepting it, but you're being damaged.
Yeah.
You just don't know it. And so it was not until, to be honest with you, until my mother got ill and my mother passed away, I really, really began to deal with it. And that was maybe in my late mid 40s or something like that.
Gotcha.
I began to deal with it because see now he wanted, I told you he was in the street. Now he wants to marry the street woman.
Mm.
So then you can't pretend with that.
Right.
So now you're in a situation either you're going to deal with what this really is and has always been. And
Mm-hmm.
one of my aha moments was with my mentor, Prophet John Veal. He said to me, well, when I heard that he was getting married, it was almost like, I can't explain to you that if God had not moved on me supernaturally, I would have ended up in the hospital or sick.
Wow.
That's how bad it affected me.
Wow.
And it was my mentor that spoke a word to me and prayed for me. And I could actually feel the hand of God helping me deal with and coping with what the information that I just received. And one of the things that my mentor said to me, he said, what I don't quite understand is why do you keep having a different expectation for your father? Because listening to you, he has been this way since you've been a child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And something clicked. Like when he said it, something clicked. I was like, oh. In other words, my expectation of still wanting to maintain that relationship was keeping me wounded and hurt.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's when I decided it's either him or me. It's him or me. And it wasn't a punishment to him, but I knew that if I didn't make a decision, I would not survive his behavior. As an older adult, you know, when you're kids, you find other ways to deal with it. But I'm getting old. I'm older now. Now I'm going on the 50s, and I can't let you have my blood pressure up and I fall out and all this kind of nonsense. So I had to make a decision, and I didn't make that decision lightly. And I was estranged from my father. And when I made that decision, I remember making it. I sat on the edge of the bed and I thought about it from that point on to the future. Okay, well, what does that mean if you make that decision? Does that mean that you won't see him again unless you see him in the casket? Like you really have to really talk to the Lord and really have that conversation. And I had that conversation with the Lord, and I had to look in the future. I just couldn't make it just right then. And when I made that decision, I knew then that the next time that I would see my father would be in the casket, and that was actually the truth. I made that decision. I chose myself. And I said, God, if I'm wrong, I said, I'm prophetic. You always show me when I'm wrong. You will check me. You will let me know. And I made that decision. And that was one of the best decisions that I made, being estranged from my father and healing the proper way and becoming whole outside of him. And I knew it hurt him, but even him wanting that relationship to mend still wasn't about me. It still was about him not hurting, right? So, you know, people want to mend, but it has nothing to do with really wanting to mend and have a healthy relationship. It's still that selfishness is still there. No, it's about you. That this trying to reconcile has nothing to do with me. And you have to be able to recognize that's hard to recognize with someone that you love, right? Whether it's a parent or you're in a relationship. It is just hard to make that decision and say, okay, can I handle the fact that I won't ever see my father again until he passes away? And I had to make that decision. I'm not saying it was an easy one, but I made it, and it was one of the best decisions that I made to estrange myself from my father, to make sure that I live a healthy and whole life outside of his toxic behavior. For whatever reason that behavior came a part of his life, it was most definitely domestic terrorism. I'll tell people that in a second. You terrorize your own family. And you have to be able to say that's what happened so you can heal and move on and declutter. So it took me a minute for my heart to be whole. And what I did when I got a therapist, I did this intentionally. I intentionally got a male therapist because I felt like the enemy was trying to turn me against male.
Oh, wow. Okay.
As a result of that first initial relationship, because that's the first male relationship we have.
Right. That's true.
So I felt like the enemy was trying to use that relationship as a way for me to hate men.
Yeah. Gotcha. That's good. That's good. That is a big, bold step to pretty much tell your parent, I'm going to choose myself over this toxic relationship. Because a lot of people have a hard time with that, and especially Christians.
Correct.
Because, you know, it says honor your mother and your father so that your days may be long upon the earth. And even when you get older, sometimes it's hard because you're still trying to honor that person in a sense, but they don't want to change. You know, like you said, you were in your 40s and you're still dealing with that toxic behavior. You know, when do we say enough is enough? When we become adults, when do we say enough is enough with the toxic behavior? Especially when you know that that person is not trying to change. They're still thinking about them. They're still being selfish. They're still being showing narcissistic behavior,
Correct.
pretty much. You know, that is really a hard place to be. And a lot of people I find need healing from that because they've tried to stay in that relationship and keep that relationship for so long, so long, so long. And it's beat them down. It's destroyed tried to destroy their peace. And, you know, that's a lot. That is a lot. So I truly commend you on that. That is a bold step to say, the last time I may see you may be in the casket, which is, you know, that's a lot. But you got to choose you and your peace, you know. And I'm grateful that thankful that you were also in an alignment and you did pray about it. You sought God about it, you know. What can you say to someone who may be in that similar situation, a young adult, or even someone who is older, that they're still trying to be respectful, but maybe they're sacrificing their own peace at the same time? I'm not saying you got to go and cuss your parent out and all of that, you know what I'm saying? But what do you suggest, or can you talk to that person who's kind of still in that situation?
You know, number one, it's normal, right? God created parents, right? So we can understand how much He loves us. It's an example, right? They can't love us more than Christ loves us, but it is an example. It's close to. So it is normal for you to want to have that relationship. There's anything wrong with that. But when you start getting to your 40s and your 50s, you're not no spring chicken. You're not 20, 30 years old.
Right.
Your ultimate responsibility is to live your own life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's to live your own life. And honoring your parents, that could be a way that you honor them.
Mm-hmm.
That you no longer are in proximity to all of that being toxic and all that kind of stuff, and you getting sick, you got to go in the hospital. Mm-hmm. None of that stuff. And see, I knew that's where I was headed.
Wow.
That's why I chose me. Mm-hmm. And I knew that if I did not release this relationship and see it for what it really was, I was going to find myself always broken, always wounded, and always sick. And always trying to pretend that this relationship is something that it's not.
Wow.
Because I want to keep it. Mm-hmm. Because who doesn't want to keep their relationship with their parent?
Right.
You have to decide. See that there's truths there's several truths to a matter, right? There's several truths to a matter. You have to honor your parents, yes, but God can define what that honoring looks like.
True.
Right? Because sometimes we think honoring means that, you got to be in close proximity to those that are toxic. You can't. Because what will happen is that then you sacrifice yourself just to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
And you have to know that Christ died for you. Even if you don't know that, just know that you're valuable, right? And that you only get one life to live. And you don't get it to live it for others, but you do get it to serve others.
Right.
And how do you serve them? The best way you can serve somebody is hold them true and hold them to truth. Mm-hmm. Right? Make sure that they are accountable. Make sure that they're responsible. You are not helping anybody by enabling them to, one, break you.
Right.
And potentially break themselves.
That's good.
They have to know that there are consequences. Now, this is not about vengeance. Now, because if you're doing it out of vengeance, that's a whole other different kind of spirit that you're just operating in. My decision had nothing to do with vengeance. It had to do with being able to one, heal, and two, live my life in a healthy way.
Gotcha.
And sometimes you cannot do that with a toxic parent or a toxic relationship or toxic friends. It doesn't matter what relationship it falls under. Sometimes you cannot do that. And now, yes, you try your best to reconcile, but if that reconciliation is going to put you in the hospital, your reconciliation is that we have to be estranged.
Mm.
And you may hurt.
Yeah.
But you got to remember now, I've been dealing with this since I was a little girl.
Mm.
So by the time I'm in my late 40s and I make that decision, enough is enough already.
A long time. That is a long time.
That's a long time. Listen, you don't even know. Listen, I didn't even know that it was there until God put the light on it. Because we had just been pretending like we just some one big happy family, and then everybody making adultery normal.
Yeah.
So you think adultery is just normal. You think it just comes along with it just comes along with it. And then just not only that, you see, it's a difference than when you heal in private, but this was public. My father was the first black sheriff one of the first black sheriffs of the state of South Carolina, and was the first black sheriff of Jasper County. So this was a public matter. This is not something that we dealt with in private.
Mm-hmm.
You talking about the whole county knew, everybody knew. So this is not something that my mother and the children dealt with in some private, So now you have the public humiliation, trauma. And then the whole county, and when I mean the whole county, most people just think, oh, that's just normal. So when I started coming against it, right, it became a major issue. Especially with my father's family and my uncles and stuff, they had a major issue because I cut my father off. But and guess what? I don't even fault them because it's a lack of ignorance. They have no clue what it is to have a father in the street. Zero.
Wow.
They have no clue.
Right.
So to even hold them to the level of ignorance that they are operating in concerning me is just foolish.
Yeah.
Right? They have no clue what it is to see their mother wounded, and to see the children humiliated in front of the whole county. Their father never did anything like that.
Wow.
So they have no clue and how we should handle something like that. They think they do.
Yeah. Right.
But they have no clue what that type of trauma brings, and that type of they do not understand that that's a part of the father who is the head of the household terrorizing his own house. They have no clue.
Yeah.
Right? So to even hold them to the level of ignorance that they operate in against me would be foolish on my part, because I know better. Right? I know they don't understand. And what they're trying to do is protect their brother. Right? That's their brother, right? So I'm not ignorant to why they have issues with me, right? Because they lack the understanding of what their brother had, the pain and the impact that he has had on his family. They have no clue, zero.
Right.
And so you can't harbor that type of bitterness towards people who don't understand. And that's what the enemy wants, right? He wants you now to get into conflict with your entire family over something that y'all all know wrong and demonic. Right? You all know that it's wrong and demonic. I'm not going to get in no battle with you about what's right and wrong. Nor will I hold you in some type of guilt mode in the way that you're handling me. Now, I'm not going to fool with you. But I'm not going to walk around with unforgiveness in my heart towards them, because they do not understand. They've never had a father to do what my father has done, right? So you got to be careful about, and this is what you're talking about, the heart hoarding. Yeah, you already dealing with your parents, and then now you were dealing with the extended. No, you gotta release your extended family. They do not understand if their father had not if they've never experienced it themselves. Right. You got to have enough wisdom to know not to bring on that burden, carry that burden to yourself. Just deal with the issue at hand. Go get your counseling and go get your healing and make the right decision what's best for you. Now, you're going to get pushback from family. Of course I did. Right. Like all four of my siblings handled it very differently. My older sister passed away. My brother handled it totally different. middle sister Hamlet totally different. And although it was, a little, I was the more extreme.
Okay.
I cut it off.
Okay.
It's over. That's it.
Right.
I'm done. It's over. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it's been happening since I was a little girl. Mm-hmm. That you've been in them streets like that and just humiliating the family and humiliating my mother and causing her to be sick and all that kind of stuff. No, I'm done. Yeah. So I didn't make that decision lightly. And those that are in that position, it's not a decision to make lightly. You have to pray.
Sounds difficult. It sounds difficult.
You have to pray, and you have to put yourself first from now on. Because when you don't put yourself first, and this is what I'm talking about, when being intentional about being truthful about what you need to declutter out of your life. And sometimes we will not be truthful. We'll keep the clutter there because we want to hold on to something that's killing us, that's junk.
You are my next question. That's what I was talking about, holding on to toxic relationships.
Yeah, you just holding on to it because it is redemption is what we understand. Why? Because Christ redeemed us. So it's natural for us to want to redeem. Mm-hmm. I think the church has done a poor job with helping people that have dealt with any type of domestic violence, domestic terrorism when it comes to adultery and all that kind of stuff. I just think that the church has not done a good job with that. And they leave people in horrible relationships where women should leave. I mean, it is just, it has been a tragedy that I've seen. And if you don't do the work yourself, if you don't research, if you don't fully understand that this is what, let me tell you what really helped me. I fully understood that Christ really does love me. Mm.
Okay.
I have reconciled that my validation is in him and him alone.
Gotcha.
And once I got that piece is when I was able to discern, God never intended for this to be. Mm-hmm. So if God never intended for this to be, then God never intended for me to just act like it's normal.
Right. Right. Because we do a lot of people pleasing.
Yeah, well,
that's what it goes back to, is that we're doing.
Well, it's relation. It's a normal response to what God put in order. Mm-hmm. God ordered parents and children. That's the order of God, right? Mm-hmm. So it is. It's not. It's a natural response to have a relationship with a parent. Right. And I do agree with you, right? Just like we want to please God, you want to please your parent, right? Mm-hmm. You want, and then not only that, but you want that relationship. Why? Because that's the order that God created. Mm-hmm. Why would you not want a relationship with your parent? Why would you choose that? Like, why would you just decide, okay, well, I'm just not going to have a relationship with them? Why? Mm-hmm. Unless there's something wrong with you or there's something that they have done.
Right. Right.
Right. So it's important that we understand that what we design relationships and wanting to stay in those relationships are normal.
Yeah. Yeah. Even dealing with spouses and, those type of things too, we gravitate. Well, we don't always gravitate, but sometimes people will gravitate or they'll stay in that toxic relationship because they're afraid to move on. They're afraid that their life will change, which it will. I've gone through divorce.
Correct. Same.
And was married several years and then came right out of college into marriage, really. And so it was going to be a big change for me. You know what I'm saying? When you go from your parents' house to college to husband, and now you're 28 years old and you're going through a divorce, you're like, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I do this? That was fear for me. You know what I'm saying? How do I if something happens to the car, what am I going to do? If something happens here, what am I going to do? And then I'm in a whole nother city from my parents.
Correct.
So I don't really have them they'll always be there, supporting, but still that fear came in as to now I got to take care of bills by myself. Not that I wasn't helping pay before, but when you're with someone, you're kind of paying them together, but now I got to take responsibility for a house, and now I got to take responsibility for everything that I was doing coming out of that relationship. It was scary. It was fearful. I can't lie, that I wasn't afraid, but I still had to do it because I had to do what benefited me. I had to do what was best for me. And I could no longer stay in that toxic relationship.
Correct.
I had to do the spring cleaning. and it was scary, and I'm saying that for anyone out there that is listening. When we make these changes in life, it's not always easy.
It's not easy.
But it's doable. You can do it.
Oh, you can do it. You can do it. And let me tell you, save or not, you can do it.
Exactly.
If you want to survive, if you want to survive, you will make the right decision for yourself. Some people have been, sometimes these things get so bad until people do not have the will to live.
Yeah, that's true.
See, that's what I'm saying. It's several truths to this matter. Right? So although we want people to declutter, sometimes people just can't make that decision alone. And they do need a support system. They do need counseling. They do need people to help them because the strength is not there. The fear is there.
It's down so much.
It's so much they're used to. I saw a documentary last night where there were women that was in domestic violence, and they killed their husband. Right? They felt like that was the only other hope. You see, it's fear. It's so many, and just like you said, they said like, what will I do? And they got so tired of the threats of being killed themselves.
Yeah.
They got so beat down until they were so tired of it until they killed their husbands, whether they hired someone or they did it themselves.
Right. And that's a sad place to be. I had a friend who, she was telling me her story a couple of years ago with her ex-husband. And he had moved her away from her family, and she was isolated in a whole nother state and all of that. And she literally had to call her family in the middle of the night when he went off to work, and they had to set up a plan to get her out of there. And even in that, she could not go back home. She had to go and stay at another person's house in a whole nother state so that he couldn't find her.
Correct.
And then it came to the point where he did find her, and her father showed up, and her father pretty much told him, if you want to live, he said, because I lived most of my life, so I ain't worried about going to jail. But if you want to live, you better leave my daughter alone. This is my only warning I'm giving you. And she said her dad proceeded to get his piece out of the car and told him, get off this property right now. You only getting one chance. After this, it's over for you. This is your life. And she said after that, she never had any issues with the ex again. But all the trauma that she had to go through just to get away, and she was like, the psychological parts and all that, it was just really, really bad, really toxic. But she knew that if she did not get out, he was going to kill her or she was going to kill him. That's how bad it had gotten.
And why do you, and as we just talking, just think about it. Why do you think the enemy want women to hate men? So what? So the enemy can create another order?
Yep.
You have to know why the enemy is creating all of this chaos in your life. You have to know what the enemy is trying to do.
Right.
You got to be wise enough to know.
Right.
The first, it's extremely important. Like you said, there's so many different reasons why people stay in toxic relationships. A lot of it has to do with fear. A lot of it has to do with self-worth. And a lot of times people validation is in other people.
That's true.
And it just can't be, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You have to find, for us, our validation is in Christ. But let's say someone that doesn't have Christ, then their validation either is in somebody that's flawed like themselves. You flawed like them. It is just a matter of time before that falls apart.
Right. You can't live like that forever.
You can't live like that forever. My validation is in Christ alone. He doesn't change.
That's right.
He doesn't fall apart. He's perfect.
Right.
I'm
the perfect. That we have that. That's the blessing that we have.
Yeah, that we have.
They haven't made that decision yet.
Correct.
So along with that, what are some practical or spiritual tools that we can use to release what no longer serves us?
Well, you have, first thing you have to do, you have to really stop just living the lie.
That's good.
You got to stop living the lie. Stop letting society, spirituality, friends, family put you in a position to live a lie about the life that you got to live, that you're going to be held responsible for at the end of the day. And it is a lot of pressure, right? Society can put a lot of pressure on you to pretend, to live a lie, to call things success that's not success.
True.
Right? True. Because if you're not driving this, or you don't have this kind of house, or this, they don't believe you're successful. Then you don't believe it. Then we get ourselves entangled with this worldly mindset and this worldly thinking that keeps us living a lie, and we keep pretending, and then other people put their expectations on us. Then what you do, you're trying to prove to them now, right, because of their expectations. The first thing you have to do for your spiritual spring house cleaning is that you're going to have to stop living a lie. And be intentional about where you really are. Do you perform?
I think that this is the time. We always talk about selfishness in a negative.
Correct.
But there's a selfishness in a positive too.
Correct.
And I think sometimes we don't take the time to do the work, to be a little selfish for ourselves of what is the best thing. Like you keep continuously saying, and I keep hearing you, this is our life. Yeah. We only have one life.
That's it.
And it's our life. Right. And we cannot allow others to determine how we live our life. So in that sense, you have the right to be selfish about your life and how you envision your life to be.
Correct.
And if it's to pull away from some things that are cluttering, are clogging your heart, are clogging your arteries, are causing you to be a hoarder, then, you have to be bold enough to step away and do what you need to do.
Correct. And I think, well, first of all, how can you really serve me if you're not taking care of yourself? Let's just be honest. In any type of relationship, how can you really serve without taking care of yourself?
Right.
If your mental health is not there, if you're not, if you can't discern well and see well and hear well, as a result of not taking care of yourself, you really can't really do anything for anybody else, right? Then now in any relationship that you're in, they see you as the toxic person because the way that you filter things, the way that you see things, the way that you hear things, right? Yeah. It is important that we understand that we have one life to live. And that's the life that we have to give account to, and how we treat people.
Right. Right.
How
I think
well you
that,
correct.
I'm sorry. I think that goes back. I didn't mean to interrupt, but
That's okay.
I think that goes back to getting the counseling.
Correct.
Talked about the counseling because I think for some people, they don't know how to move. You know, I'm all about equipping people
Correct.
on how to make it to that next step. And I think that, like you were saying, somebody who could be in an abusive relationship, they've been beat down for so long till they just can't see straight. And that's when you have to be bold enough to get the counseling, to reach out to help, reach out for help and support so that that person can help you, guide you, help you get up and guide you to where you need to go to make those next steps. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And I see what happens a lot of time in domestic terrorism or domestic violence, in any form of it, whether it's with a spouse or whether it's within just a family. What we do, we keep pushing it aside. So when you see one thing wrong, you won't address it. You just keep pushing it aside. Right? Now you see the second thing wrong, you just keep pushing it to the side. Right? We won't tackle what we see wrong at the beginning. Now it's been, as a child, I couldn't tackle that because God gave my parents the responsibility to take care of me and to bring me up in a decent environment. That was their responsibility. I had nothing to do with that.
Right.
Right? So there's nothing that I could do about the environment that I was in. As a child, I'm just trying to process it. Right? Once I got older, I still didn't have the tools. Once I became 18, I still didn't have the understanding or the tools to really say, okay, I'm broken as a result of what I've seen. I didn't have it because, come on, let's be honest. A lot of times in the African American household, you keep everything in the house. Counseling, counseling, no, we don't go to counseling.
Right.
We don't get therapy. That has just changed here now over some years. But prior to that, that's not something that African Americans, we didn't get counseling. We didn't get therapy. Mm-hmm. And we thought other culture was weird for doing so. Right? We did. So at 18, I'm not going to know, right? I'm not thinking that what I've just witnessed all of these years has traumatized me. Mm-hmm. I see it as normal to some degree. And it's been going on since what? Since my mother passed away. Mm-hmm. My mother and father was married 54 years. My daddy cheated the majority of the marriage that I can remember. I'm 55. I'm 56 now. That's all I remember is my father cheating.
Wow.
So, you don't fully understand how something like that has an effect on you. You fully don't get that, especially in our community. Back then, you just didn't understand it.
Right.
So a lot of my ways, a lot of my behavior came out of result of that, of what was demonstrated in front of me. Mm-hmm. Right? So a lot of times we're not offensive, we just wounded.
That's good.
Yeah, we're not loud. We just trying to, it's part of trying to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
All the stuff that they see, that they claim they see a lot of times with African American women, it has to do with trauma and all of these different things like that, that we have to be. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm straightforward, right? I'm straightforward. But there's also, I might be straightforward, but those that know me know that I'm gentle, know that I'm loving, right? And you can't see that when I'm being direct, but I've learned that that's really who I am, not this other thing that I've picked up along those spirits that trauma brought along with it. Mm-hmm. And you have to understand some of the stuff that we are doing is not who you are. It's stuff that comes along with trauma.
That's true.
And you've been dealing with trauma for so long, you have to decide, okay, I got to change this. I don't think this is quite normal. And I knew that after I got saved. When I first got saved, I'm sure you remember the shield of faith.
Yeah.
And so when I got saved and stuff, and I would be around everybody, they've been saved forever, and they would say to me, Bernie, you nasty. You like to argue, right? And to me, I'm like, what are you talking about? This is wrong. Until one day they kept saying that I went into prayer. And I might have been young, but I went into prayer. I was saved. I went into prayer. I said, God, what are they talking about? The very next day, I can't remember who I was in dialogue with. God allowed me to hear myself. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, this is what they're talking about. I couldn't hear it. I didn't know. I thought it was normal. Mm-hmm. I was around parents that fussed all the time.
Gotcha.
So I didn't understand. I didn't get what I couldn't understand. I was like, what are they? But one day I was like, let me just ask God. After I asked him, the very next day, he allowed me to hear myself and gave me a couple of dreams about it.
Wow.
So then I knew this was stuff that I picked up along the way. Mm-hmm. Had been a part of my life forever. So you gotta now, even at my age now, I have to be very, very careful. I gotta really watch my tone. I gotta really watch it. It's been a part of me for all of these years. And so I gotta really, really pay attention and really watch it so I don't come off a certain way.
Yeah. I do too.
Yeah?
I do too.
Yeah.
I try to make sure, because sometimes I can come off very direct.
Well, it's okay to come off direct. It's okay to come off direct, but you don't have to be nasty about it.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, though.
The tone.
It's the tone. It's the tone. It's just like chop, chop, chop. And then I have to come back sometimes and put a little sugar on top. Like, oh, okay. I heard myself when I said it,
That's kind, but a lot of that comes from you just, it has just come from dealing with so much trauma throughout the year. Mm-hmm. And it has just become a part of the personality, and you do have to practice. I don't be honest with you, it just doesn't go away. I ask God to deliver me from it. There has been no deliverance. I've walked through it.
I'm very conscious. I try to make sure I'm very conscious of how I say things to people.
Correct.
My tone is normally, but actually my tone has changed throughout the years for the better. I think for me, I try to be a little more patient.
Correct.
Like I said, just trying to think a little more before I say stuff, because when I was younger, so cutthroat with it but that's a generational thing, because that's how it was when I grew up. My mom was very direct. My dad was very direct. And so it was just like chop, chop, chop. But that doesn't always work well when you're dealing with people and you're dealing in corporate and stuff. So I can definitely say for me, throughout the years, I've gained a lot more wisdom in that area with my mouth.
Right. And then just as you get, and then when you get saved, it's called the fruits of the Spirit.
Yeah.
Like that's just those are not optionals.
Well, some people, they've been saved a long time and they still dealing with them same fruits, because they ain't ready to let it go and humble.
They think it's optional. No, let's be honest. Most think the fruits of the Spirit are optional for us.
Right.
Well, what the Holy Spirit said to me, it's not optional for you.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I'm constantly working on it. I'm constantly being deliberate in that area. Like you said, over the years, I've changed so much, but part of that is because I'm healed too.
Yeah.
Right. Some of that I've healed and I've learned. And I try not to jump to conclusion. I try not to just assume people mean me harm, even though I may know not, because I am prophetic. There's still a different way I may handle you, even though I know you're a snake in the grass. Right. Because it just comes along with maturity. What you're gonna do? You're gonna throw away every snake? Some snakes you need to keep around, right? Because you may use some of their venom to do whatever you need to do. Mm-hmm. So you got to use wisdom sometimes. Remember now, Moses was a deliverer, but God God allowed him to grow up to learn protocol in the heathen kingdom now. He learned all those protocols.
Mm-hmm.
He was worshiping a different type of God, but he was still a deliverer.
Right.
And so God allowed him to learn all of that stuff. Why? Because once God changed him, he had to go back and he had to know how, he needed to know the customs. You just can't just walk up in the Pharaoh place. So he had to understand, he understood, you know what I mean? Like you just can just walk up to Pharaoh. He understood the customs he had grew up in.
Right.
So sometimes God will allow the very thing, the anti-God stuff. He allowed you to grow up in that anti-God stuff. But so when he uses you, you know how to navigate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Definitely in discernment. A lot of us do not tap into our discernment too. You feel that or you know that. Pay attention. Don't just disregard it. Because
why do you think you're disregarding it?
Well, you tell me. Why are we disregarding it?
We disregard it because we want to continue to live the lie.
Oh, yeah.
We don't want to. Let's be. You just know from yourself. Before you separated and went your separation, you knew.
Mm-hmm.
I knew the second day after I got married, I made a mistake. I knew the second day I was in trouble. I just didn't know how bad. I knew I was in trouble. I just didn't know how bad.
Okay.
I knew the second day.
Gotcha.
And
it took me some years. It took me some years.
Yeah, and I saw some things prior to getting married, but when you've never been married, you don't fully understand that the things that you see is time 20.
Yeah.
Once you get married.
Mm-hmm.
So when you've never been married, you don't fully understand that.
That's true.
So although I saw some of the signs, I didn't have the experience to know that what I was seeing now was going to be time 20 once I got married.
Mm. That is true.
Right? So, it just came from being inexperienced. And then, some of it is, remember now, I pretended all these years with my father. Right? To keep the relationship. What you think I'm going to do with the marriage?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try to ignore the things to keep the relationship.
Right.
You have to see.
A lot of us. Yeah.
You have to see it for what it is. You can't pretend that that's not what's happening.
Right.
That was my initial thing when I grew up. Pretend with my dad. Well, when I got married, same thing. I said, okay, I see it, but okay.
Yeah.
You see?
I know for me, a lot I did not see in the beginning. And it may not have even been there in the beginning, but as years progressed, then I started to see some things.
Right.
Yeah.
But not only was
young too. You said very young and inexperienced. I got married and inexperienced. So.
But just not with him. We both walked into the marriage incorrectly. Yeah. We both walked into the marriage selfishly. We were both looking for each other to fix each other. We wasn't old enough. And although we got married late, I got married at 35. But I was still wounded. I was still broken and didn't fully understand it. Yeah. So you're still walking into a relationship being selfish, right? And people that want to be in a relationship, if you walking in a relationship looking to get something, you already doomed. If you're not walking in a relationship to serve and to make the person, and that's not on your mind, how can I really make their life better? And you just sitting over there thinking, I don't have to do this no more. I don't have to do this. They just, they're just here for me. Honey, I pray on every Saturday on that prayer call. I pray that God hide us from takers, selfish people, and people with the wrong motives. I pray that every Saturday for single people, that God hide us from takers, selfish people, and those with the wrong motives.
That's wonderful. We all need it.
We all need to hide me. Don't even let them be attracted to me. Let them see my head twisted up somewhere. Let them think I'm too fat. Let them just don't let them be attracted to me. Just let them just pass by. No, I don't like her. Okay, great. Right? Because listen, we got to be honest. We live lives.
We do.
And the worst thing you can do is pretend like you don't even live a lie.
We do.
So that's why when you said at the beginning, which was so accurate, you said at the beginning that we have to check our hearts every day. You got to ask God, expose me to me. If you don't, you're gonna fool around, you're going to be lying to yourself. Because your flesh is a mess, all of us.
Right. That's right.
And if you don't pray that prayer every day, you're going to find yourself lying to yourself. And living and pretending and believing and trying to accomplish this so you can impress somebody. Child, listen. You get one life to live. You better impress yourself and Jesus.
I know that's right. Relax and let it go.
Relax and let it go.
Let it go.
And don't let people define what life is for you. That's another major big thing when it comes to decluttering your heart. You got to get to the point where you stop letting people, family, it doesn't matter. They can give their suggestions, but they cannot dictate you what life should look like for you. And then start judging you when the life, because they have an expectation of your life, and that your life to look like theirs. They start judging you and making you gotta be intentional about not allowing that to happen.
Right.
And that's something that I just don't play. I don't allow people. They can have whatever expectation they want, but I don't follow other people's expectation concerning my life. They can have whatever opinion they want. They can think I should have been here by now or there by now. None of that stuff bothers me.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. None of that stuff bothers me at the age of 56. First of all, it's none of their business. It's between God and I. That's number one.
Right.
So if you don't get that kind of attitude, you're going to be living your life for your friends, family, everybody else.
Right. And then you're going to look back at 70 and said, where's my life? Correct. This is not the life that I wanted to live because you lived everybody else's life instead of your own.
Michelle Obama said she went to all this Princeton and all this stuff, and she realized she was a lawyer. She said, but is this what I really want to do? She said it hit her that I think I've been doing this for everybody else. I'm not saying it's a bad profession, but I'm not saying it didn't serve her, right? She became the first lady of the country, but her point was that she sat down and realized, well, what did I do for me?
Mm-hmm. Right. And a lot of us, like you said, we realize that when it's not necessarily too late, but we're older.
We're older.
We're older and about to not necessarily be in retirement, but we've wasted 20 years of living, like you said, lies. Yeah. And now we got so much baggage. Right. That we're trying to get rid of so we can really live the life that we really want to live.
Correct. And that comes to even pursuing goals. People don't pursue their goals because they care about what other people think about it.
True.
That's why you shouldn't even tell them what you're doing.
I agree.
People won't even pursue what they want to pursue because of others. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, like you said, I thought your title for this podcast was beautiful. You have to start decluttering. It's time for spring cleaning.
Yes. So with that being said, once we release emotional or spiritual baggage, what's next? And how do we nurture that fresh space for something new? When you think about that, how do you nurture that fresh space for something new?
Well, remember this. Don't start something you're not going to finish. If you started with therapy to be healed, continue with therapy to maintain your healing. Those of us that are saved, we use prayer. I use prayer and therapy. And I intentionally, this is intentional for me. I surround myself with healthy people. Mm-hmm. If I want to be married, then I am around healthy marriages. Yeah. That's intentional. I seek it out. If I want to do whatever I want to do, once I've come off my shaky foundation and now I'm healed and I need to maintain my deliverance, I need to maintain my healing and the place and maintain the boundaries that I set, I make sure that I have a support system.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is counseling. I have loving friends that I've had for
Yes.
years, that keeps me accountable. I have a mentor
Mm-hmm.
that's in my life, that keeps me grounded and help me stay on the right path. I have a mentee myself, which also helps me stay on the right path, right? Because I'm mentoring her. So I
Yeah.
think that there are things that you need to set up in your life that once you have accomplished what you want to accomplish, you've taken your power back. Now you know who you are. Now you want to move a different way. Then guess when you start moving a different way, sometimes you have to change the space that you're around.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to set boundaries with
Mm-hmm.
people that you've been knowing for years. You don't have to cut them off, but you can't let them cross certain boundaries. And
Definitely boundaries.
and you can't tell them everything. Everything you're doing, you should move in silence.
Right. Right. I totally agree. I totally agree. Definitely set those boundaries, move in silence. If you got to tell somebody, make sure somebody that you can trust,
Correct.
who is not there to judge, but there to support.
Correct.
And, and even if they give you some ideas or whatever, but you can't share everything with everybody.
Correct.
Also, I suggest too journaling if you need to get some stuff off your chest that you really cannot share with anybody.
Correct.
Write it down and journal it. Sometimes, that's the best way that's part of your healing.
It is.
And you can always go back and reflect if you want to, or you may never want to go back and reflect. You may want to journal it and burn it. I don't know. But but that's also part of the healing process too. And I believe too that you should map out on paper, what does your future look like? What does your life look like that you want?
Yes.
So that you can visually see that. A lot of times we spend so much visualizing where we're at, where the problem is, that when we're going through the healing process, we don't map out and visualize how do we want our life to be.
Right.
What are we looking forward to? If you want marriage, put it on that paper. If you want kids, put it on that paper. If you want a new job, career, you want your own business, put it on that paper. That's how you start to manifest things.
Correct.
You start to put it on that paper. And instead of dwelling on the negative, once as you're getting healed and you're going through your healing process, whether it's counseling, however, as you're going through that healing process, start getting the positive things in your mind, the daily affirmations to speak. Because a lot of times, and we know this, growing up in church, the things that come out of your mouth, those words are powerful.
It matters.
Those words are powerful. So you can either speak the death or you can either speak life.
Correct.
And so we want to get in a process of where we're speaking affirmations of life over ourselves. And, once we do that, or once you're doing that, then you'll start to see your life change. It's not going to be immediate.
Correct.
It's going to take a process and it takes time. But the first thing is to start the cleaning process of decluttering, of going in there, looking in your heart, or think about it like you're looking in your house and seeing what areas have the clutter that need to be cleaned out. Because nothing is like a fresh house. I love when my house is freshly clean.
Yeah.
And just like your house is freshly clean, we want our hearts to be. We want our lives to be. Nothing is going to be perfect. It's always constantly a learning process. But, there's areas that we have to constantly fine tune as we grow and go. So, any closing words that you have for our listeners when they're dealing with the declutter season, the unclogging and the hoarding, getting rid of all of that? I know you shared a lot, and I really appreciate everything that you shared. Very good information, heartfelt. Anything else that you want to leave with them as far as when you're dealing with relationships or goals or, anything?
I would just say be true to yourself. And I will say the exact same thing you said, LaToniga. Make sure you write things down. When you say you want to be married, well, why do you want to be married? For what reason?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is important to know, and that's when you really start doing the decluttering, right? Because you can you can see a piece of paper on the floor and pick that up. But deep down under that carpet, it's real dirty.
You get that back and suck some things out.
Yeah, you just picked up what was on the surface. I would say go deeper. And I can be honest with you, when I decided to go deeper, it was extremely hurtful. When I would go to counseling and I had to unpack, and I knew that's what I was trying to avoid.
Yeah.
When I had to unpack that relationship with my father, I would leave that my therapy session and go back to work and feel all the pain in my chest from the hurt. But if I never talked about it, I didn't have to feel it.
Right.
And so I would say when you start unpacking and decluttering, some of it is going to hurt. You're going to be afraid. It's going to be a whole new world for you. When you start looking at things differently, you're like, you know what, that was a little off right there. Not especially now since that I'm healed. Oh, I would have never talked to that person. Like now I can look back, there are just some people I would have never entertained.
Right.
Because I'm healed.
Right.
But it was our brokenness that connected us, even with my ex-husband. It was our brokenness that connected us. It had nothing to do with love. Mm-hmm. So I would say to you, go deep. Just don't pick up the clutter that's on top of the carpet. Do a deep clean.
That's good.
That's what I would leave with the audience.
That's good. And the thing is, the great thing is that that pain is temporary.
Correct.
It's temporary. So, you have to get through it to get to the other side. But
correct.
Know that the other side is better. Is greater.
Yes.
And so we don't want anything keeping us from getting to the greater and to the better. So, yeah.
Correct.
Well, I thank you for joining me on this podcast today. Any last words, anything that you wanted to say? You've given us so much wonderful information. And for our singles out there, if you get an opportunity, check out the prayer every Saturday. Is it at 8 a.m.?
Yep, it's 8 a.m. Eastern time.
8 a.m. Eastern time for the prayer on what?
It's on my YouTube channel, Bees Real Life TV. Whenever LaToniga posts this, I'll give her the links to put in where you guys can go click it. We also having a singles conference coming up July 19th, and the beautiful LaToniga is going to be a part of it. So you guys want to be there. We're excited. We're going to have some fun. I just save the date, so it'll be July 19th. I'll give you all. It's going to be for one day, and we're just going to have a whole lot of fun. And like she said, I pray every Saturday morning for singles. So what we do, we learn a skill set to prepare for marriage, right? And then we pray for ourselves and our spouses and the manifestation of those spouses. We just ain't praying. We need God to bring them on in, okay? Yes. So that's what we're praying for. And so you guys are more than welcome to join me every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. on my YouTube channel, Bees Real Life TV.
That's wonderful. Thank you for the information. And any closing words before we close out?
No, I just thank you so much for inviting me. I had a wonderful time having this conversation. I just hope that the audience was blessed and that they will take something that we've said that will really shift and reset their lives to really start doing the deep cleaning that God has probably been knocking on their door to do for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And I thank you. I know that I was blessed. I know that I definitely will have to have you back again. We talk about some other things.
Awesome.
This has definitely been a great spring cleaning conversation. And I thank you for sharing your heart and even your personal testimony. And that it will bless someone, that someone will take everything to heart. And I'm just grateful. So thank you so much. And everyone, our listeners, you guys stay encouraged, speak life, and soar.